too. There you go.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, I just came back from Washington, the event back there, and then just a couple of days ago, got back from Texas, and that's why I lost one of my tooth up here. See,
Oh,
tooth got out of
yikes.
my hat on the airplane somewhere. And anyway, yeah, a great event, both of them. So heading out to California in a couple more days. So
Oh, that's awesome.
moving around. Yeah.
Yeah, you're really busy. That's some kind of lifestyle. You're like a rock star almost, going from town to town.
I don't mind being there. I just don't like going sometimes.
Right, right. Yeah.
Plane rides now. And then I go to Montana here in a couple of weeks after that when I get back from California.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, David Pilates is doing an event back there. And,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, pretty good. Anyway, then I got another one in Nashville when I get back from that one. So
Wow.
it's good, I
That's
guess.
amazing. So,
Well, it's all about that book. People are really tuning into that book.
oh yeah. Yeah,
Lots of them.
it's just like a rabbit hole, you know. You start to go get into it, and then you get the different concepts, and you can go. I mean, it's going to take me. I was trying to break it down for the magazine article, and I got to like hundreds of pages, and I thought I'm going to have to break this up into segments. So I'm going to have to break it up into a couple different issues, which is great.
Well, it's different, that's for sure. It does go down the rabbit hole, but that's where people say I'm out in the weeds. Well, that's where maybe Bigfoot is, you know.
Yeah.
So
He's already gone down the rabbit hole.
I know I've been with Peter Byrne since 1970, some odd, you know, off and on. And Peter and I became really good friends, but he never did buy into what that book's about. You know, he's passed away, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and him and I had a lot of good memories. And but anyway, he never would accept the concept that there's two different types of physics going on.
Right.
And it just, well, yeah, that's okay. A lot of people don't. That's all right.
Right. Well, quantum physics isn't in the mainstream of knowledge, or the mainstream of academia, even, or the mainstream of um, popular culture, or the media or anything. If you look, you can find things on it, and there's some people doing some incredible, you know, papers and programs on it, but you really have to kind of search for it.
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I've been looking into that for years and years, and finally decided I got to write a book. Because there has to be some kind of law or something that governs everything.
Right.
And you know, the strangeness that happened to us at the Sierra camp couldn't be explained by classical science, and yet that's what everybody goes by. It's
Right.
based on everything that's material, physical, and measurable and predictable. And quantum physics is not that way. You know, we have to live in a three-dimensional environment, which gives us our classical science, because you can see, you can hear, and all that stuff. But that's not all there is. There's other things going on,
Right.
and how you get into that was well, actually Max Planck in 1918 won the Nobel Prize. So it's relatively a new science, and most people, the schools, you know, we learn classical science from Newtonian physics in fifth grade of school, you know?
Right.
But it's not all there is, and people are seeing things out there they can't explain, and I've witnessed a lot of things can't be explained any other way than in the classical quantum science, excuse me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So do you want to go ahead and I'd like to really finish this book and get kind of deep into it. And then we could discuss that on another one, if that's okay. And then right now,
Sure.
you tell your
Yeah.
stories, to know how you got to meet Peter Byrne, and the adventure you went on in Nepal, and the other adventures with him, and describe him and your you know, relationship together as friends and
Yeah.
research colleagues. That'd be wonderful.
Sure. Yeah. We met each other in 1978, I think, or maybe 74, around in there. He came down to see me because, well, let me back up a little bit. The winter of 71, the leader of our group, Warren Johnson, wrote Ivan Sanderson, a cryptozoologist, a letter, a 23-page handwritten letter describing what was going on up there at our camp. And he sent it to Peter Byrne, who was in Oregon at the time with his research center. And then Peter, thinking it was all hoax, just like everybody thinking it was, sent it down to Al Berry to see if he wanted to follow it up, who lived in California at the time. And Al Berry, really smart guy, he had a master's degree in science, so he came down and interviewed us, and we ended up inviting him in. So he actually fostered the studies that we had done on it in the University of Wyoming, and so we're showing those tapes were not manipulated. The recordings we made were not manipulated, slowed down, speeded up, or nothing like that. And they represented something that compared to a human anyway, over 8 foot tall. So that kind of that's a nice report, you know. But and they wrote it in a paper. It's in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, published by UCB Press in 1980. And yet that wasn't enough to get a lot of academia on board, because there was a symposium in British Columbia when he gave that report. And he said it's still hard for academia, thinks they have to fall into Darwin's theory, and they're not there, you know. So they're not there, they can't exist. This
Mhm.
is how they think, you know. Too many
Right.
people think that way, actually. So anyway, he went up there with us and started experiencing the same thing, and ended up looking for the hoax. So he was out. He was trying to find out who could be tricking us, because it's hard to believe this stuff. But it was happening, and he couldn't explain it either. So he said, "Just don't talk about the strange things around here, because no one will ever ask you to talk again." 'Cause
Right.
him being a classical scientist, so. But anyway, Peter went up there one time with him, and he went up there one time with me. And nothing happened when Peter was there, but that's not surprising. You know, it's just sometimes they don't know who you are. They're not going to come around you, because they were sentient beings, in my opinion. They're very, very smart. And we're talking about Bigfoot now,
Yeah.
in case anybody don't know. And but anyway, Peter and I became friends. We hung out together off and on. We fishing with him a few times like that too. And he invited me to go over to Nepal with him every time he went, which was just about every year. And finally, I thought, you know, this man's getting older. If I'm going to go to Nepal, I better jump on the board with him there. So we left out of Los Angeles, flew 17 and a half hours over to Kathmandu, hung out there for a few hours, and caught another flight over to, I said Kathmandu. We landed in Bangkok, then went to Kathmandu. Stayed there for a few days, and then rented a van, which comes with a driver and a escort. And we drove across, him and I, across Nepal for 3 days, stopping at people he knew and spending there. And he's very well respected over there. I mean, he could speak the languages, all of them, and people just put out the carpet for him over there, because they knew him, because he'd been going in there as the first great white hunter, you know. And it's got a really good story. And Days, Gone Are the Days is the name of this book. Somebody wants to know some good stuff that's in it. He got in a fight in a bar one time back in the old days. He was standing up for one of the higher ups' nephew, I guess it was. Anyway, that's what got him into Nepal to go hunting. This was in India when they got the bar fight. He got a colorful history, I tell you,
Uh,
really colorful. And so he got invited in Nepal. He started taking safaris in there. I think he had 72 uh, safaris into Nepal for tiger hunts, elephants, things like that. But he ended up getting a real great respect for the animals there, and he stopped the hunting and turned all the acreage, which was hundreds of acres over, that the government given him to do this, and he's turned it over to no hunting, just kind of take your camera.
mhm.
So he started doing that, and that's when I would start going over there with him. There's no hunting allowed. In fact, they got military around it now. If you hunt tigers, if you're even caught with a gun, they got all the authority in the world to shoot you.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, it's quite restricted now. But there was a rogue elephant there we encountered, and tore up one of the sheds close by where he stays generally. And we went out looking, because he's counting tigers, see how many there were in the area, and he could tell by the leopard tracks, because they don't go together, you know.
Hmm.
Tigers are the records out. So you find a tiger track, you know there's no leopards in that area.
Oh, wow.
And if you find leopard tracks, you probably realize there's no tigers in the area. The tigers are good. Anyway, he put me on an elephant by myself I say by myself, just the guide, the leader, and I went out, had 6 days on an elephant, and that was exciting. You know, I got between two rhinos one time, a male and a female, and it's not the right thing to do.
Wow.
The male, I thought, well, we got pretty close to him, so I'll just take a picture. Let's take a picture of this rhino, and this female screamed to me. Not to me. She screamed on the other side, and the elephant reared up. I had to grab a hold of the basket, hold on my camera, and that elephant just took off running.
Oh wow.
But they only can charge, not the elephant, but the rhinos only see what they see in front of them. They can't see up high, so it wasn't charging at me, it charged at the elephant. The elephant knew that, and he didn't want to get horns, so he just took off. The elephants are pretty King Kong over there. I mean, they'll go through anything. That's really the way to get around. I also ran across a 19-foot restrictor over there when I was on the elephant,
Wow.
and that was pretty big for that area. So anyway, got back, and then we stayed at this lodge, which is quite a ways out, and it was just him and I were the only ones there. But they treated us like kings. I mean, because they had so much respect for Peter, and Peter has so much respect for their elephants, and anyway, they've read every book he's got, and so that was kind of a fun trip, I got to tell you. And we went up into the mountains there, and just people wanted to take us up there to show us where they was trying to put a road way up high. And that was our trip to Nepal. I
Hmm.
flew back into Kathmandu after being there for a while, and spent a week in Kathmandu with his old Nambu was his name. He passed away a few years back, but he owned a little motel there, him and his wife, and he took me around, showed me all around Kathmandu, and he used to be Peter's camp cook and had I'm not gonna say shaman, but forgot. But anyway, he was with Peter on all of his adventures up in
Oh,
the
like a
high
Sherpa or something, or
yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's really cool. So when you were there, was he in discussion about the Yeti and his experiences on that search?
No, well, I've known about those, but not a lot, just
Mhm.
because I already knew a lot of his trips, and
Right.
so. But one of his daughter, named after one of the lakes up there, and she's still around. And anyway, him and his wife, I guess at the time, was up there hiking around the high areas, but he never ran across a Yeti or anything like that. But he was always looking.
Hmm.
When he went up to our camp, he was always looking.
Hmm.
And even until he died, he was looking in the Pacific Northwest, where he lived in Pacific City, Oregon, and trail cams out and all that stuff. In the 90s, he's still walking the trail cams.
Hmm.
So just a few months ago was when he really started failing. And anyway, we're all going somewhere at one point or another. So
Right. That's right. No one gets out alive, or at least not in the sense that we see it.
that's right. Yeah, but that's what I get into. I'm not sure if I'm doing this book or not. I'm writing another book too, by the way,
Oh, good.
and it gets into the ethereal part of our spirit being and the physical body, the
Uh,
difference between them. And according to science, quantum science, your who you are as a person, your energy. That's who we are: energy, frequency, vibration. Everything is, but the energy doesn't die according to physics. So I try to tell people, you're not going to die. You're just going to change forms. You're going somewhere
right.
else, and your body's what dies. That's the physical part. So that's what leads me into these conferences and stuff. I try to let people know that there's more going on than what they can see with their limited visibility, which is pretty restricted. There's so much more to see that we can't see with our eyes. We only see between 430 and 770 terahertz, and there's so much more out there.
Right.
So I think anyway, I just can ramble on and on and on. So
Well, that's good.
Peter,
That's what I love. I mean, this is like when I went to college, I got a degree in anthropology, which is basically, the cultural anthropology is just like the study of day to day life.
hmm,
So like I'll interview people in different things, but what I'm after is like the day in a life of, rather than the big historic events. You know what I'm saying? So that's what kind of gets me interested.
Well, Peter, he enjoyed his drink once a day. You know, he
Mhm.
wasn't a teetotaler. He lived into his late 90s, you know,
Mhm.
and he you never knew what he was going to drink. But I had a lot of dinners with him and a lot of fun times.
Mhm.
Uh, I know that. What else to say? He's a he was a good friend, and he will be missed. He is missed. A lot of
Yeah.
people knew him. He was one of the last of the four horsemen. If you know who those are, it's
Yeah.
Rene DeHinden and Grover Krantz and John
Right.
Green.
Mhm.
So, and we flew up into Canada a couple times. Peter and I did in my plane, and we explored the Albert Osman story, you know, Toba Inlet,
Uh-huh.
and that's when we flew into Camel River and had a helicopter on standby there. So if we had found the bowl that he said he was held in for 6 days, if you know that story,
Yeah.
where he was kidnapped and held by a family of Bigfoot,
Right.
um, two adults and two adolescents. And we circled that area for all day long, slow flying, and never could find the bowl. So when we came back, but he was on a time schedule at that time, and he wanted to go back again sometime, but we never did. And had we found the bowl, we would have helicoptered in and looked for anything at all that would be evident of Albert Osman being there,
Mhm.
which would have been the snuff cans that he had and things like that. And really, the way he described everything, he probably could find it.
Mhm.
Uh, so I'm not sure, and he wasn't sure. In fact, he kind of thought for sure that was not Toby Inlet that he went into. There's so many inlets up there. I think he might have been mistaken. I know I dropped my plane down low into the canyon where he said he was, and you couldn't see out the ships where he said you could see ships from there. And I even landed up in there on a riverbed,
Mhm.
and we got out and looked around. And so anyway, he would have had to be pretty high up to have seen those ships. And I
Mhm.
talked to John Green about that later on, and he thought I was accusing Albert Osman of being disingenuous, and that's not true. I think he probably remembered what he could remember because he wasn't interviewed till '50s from John Green, and prior to
Right.
that,
Mhm.
it hadn't been written down or interviewed. This happened in 1924, the same year that Fred Beck supposedly shot one in Oregon,
Mhm.
and so we've discussed all those things together. There were times around their campfires and stayed in a tent over there in Nepal when we got to where he stays. And, so it was fun, had a lot of adventure with him. But I've had a very fortunate life, really. I've done a lot of things. I'm
Very
sure
amazing.
they're happy I got to meet with Peter and do some things with him. Uh, but I've been into South America a couple of times on studies and look at the megaliths down there and the enigmatic skulls, the elongated skulls, and a couple of different scientists. Been into Alaska several times. I've flown up there in my own plane several times. I don't fly anymore in my own plane. I wish I did. I kind of miss that when I go to these conventions.
Mhm.
I like being at these conventions. I just don't like going to.
Yeah.
I just want to be there. I have to learn how to transport myself through quantum
Yeah.
physics or something. Zip me over, Scotty.
That's right. Yeah, I guess the cave at Ape Canyon, the miners' cave, they just found what, yesterday or something?
Yeah, a few days ago. Yeah,
Last
yeah,
week. That's pretty interesting. So I guess they could
and
trace back to that and find the cabin platform or something.
well, they found where the cabin is. I
Oh, they
think.
did find it.
I don't know if the same guys found it, but I know some guys that found it. I got a nail out of it.
Oh,
He gave me Shane Carson, I think it was. Him and somebody else went in there, and it was a good thing to find, but it's not much of it left. It's been a long
right.
time ago. So
Yeah, I was
yeah,
thinking about going up there with a metal detector just to see if I could find any of the case, bullet casings.
yeah. Well, they found some stuff. I know that he had several things from the cabin site.
Hmm. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess that's on my list to go up there. Well,
Well,
that's
if you ever go, I'll turn you into the guy that knows where it's at.
oh, that would help. That'd be helpful.
Yeah,
Otherwise, would be
save you
walking around
save
like
you a little walking.
yeah, that's awesome. So I was wondering also about when Bob Gimlin took his horseback trip from the Mojave Desert up to the Canadian border. He said he stopped at your place and you guys connected. What was that like?
Oh, I know Bob for a long time.
Uh,
I guess he wanted to find out what because he just saw one, and that's about all it amounted to, which is
mm,
a big deal because it's a
right.
film, and I don't have a film. I just have the sounds, which over the years we recorded several parts of sounds.
Hmm.
So yeah, Bob stopped and visited with me in California when I lived there, and we talked for a long time. And then I got to know him, and we started sitting together at different events and speaking together. And he's a good little guy. He's yeah, Bob's fun. He's getting old too, like we all are. I mean, of
Hmm.
course, not getting older is not a good thing either.
Yeah, not getting older is
Right.
kind of counterproductive.
Well, we want to, yeah, you want to live as long as you can so you can
Yeah,
experience more things. That's all, in my opinion, that's all life's about, is the experiences
yeah,
that you can have. And
right.
I've been very fortunate because I've had a lot of experiences. I've flown up through Canada several times, into Alaska, and all the way down into South America, and,
Oh, that's amazing.
and just done a lot of stuff. Yeah, well, yeah, I've been to the Patterson site. In fact, I went there with Peter once. I've been there 4 times, I think. And went with Peter once. He showed me where the creek had changed since '67 film, and showed me the tree, how he knew, because the tree was a certain spot that he recognized. And anyway, it was fun. We slept out on the ground. Nothing happened. No Bigfoot carried us away or nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Did you ever met Jerry Crew?
I never have, but I remember. I know a lot of things back then. I don't remember.
Yeah. Bob Titmus or any of those guys? John
uh,
Green, you said you met, so
oh yeah, I know. I met John a long time ago, and Grover Krantz. Grover Krantz never was into our sounds though. He was a classical scientist. He said, primates only we can only talk. Only humans, according to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, says only humans have the vocal mechanism apparatus to speak cognizant language like we're doing now. I mean, everything communicates, but not like we're doing. And only humans can do that, according to he's a cognitive researcher. He passed away last year, but that was Lieberman. So when you get into the what I've got with the sounds of Dr. Professor Curlin, who did the study for a year on the sounds, showing they were represented a person compared to humans over 8 foot tall. Then you get into Scott Nelson, who is a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy to decipher languages and codes to see if it was a language, it was to transcribe it and see what you can get out of it, any trick or anything. He studied them also, and it really gets into they they, they have this capacity for huge vocal mechanism, huge range in their vocal
mm,
abilities, much more powerful than we are.
like 2 or 3 more octaves, right?
Um, yeah,
That's
yes, at
pretty
least.
good.
Who knows? Because we wasn't recording infrasound or ultrasound with our little cassette
Oh, yeah, that's
recorders.
true. There's
So
octaves you probably couldn't hear.
how would we wouldn't hear it? We wouldn't know it. You have to
Yeah,
see that stuff on a graph or something. And
right, that makes
so,
sense. Like a
so
dog,
anyway, yeah,
like a dog whistle, and we can't hear it, but the dog
right,
can.
exactly. So I've often wondered if they did, because I know we've been froze up there a few times, just couldn't move, budged, and that was interesting. And you don't know what caused that. I didn't know. So I asked a scientist, who's also passed away, by the way, Dr. Fish.
Happens to
And
the best of us.
I guess we're all going to happen. We're going to change forms.
Mhm.
Uh, he said, "Well, I don't want to hear about your fear. You got froze on froze fear." I said, "We were not afraid at that time. We'd been getting comfortable with them. Knew they weren't going to eat us or carry us away or something. So I didn't think they were anyway." So Warren Johnson and I jumped out of the shelter. We was the only two there, and started walking up for this big tree where we thought they were. This one was, it was blabbering, talking, chattering, I should say, not blabbering. And got so far up there, in about 15, 20 feet from that tree, we both just got stopped by something. I relate to it in one of my books as a force field, like see in Star Trek, one of these places, was something that we couldn't go forward.
Wow.
And we weren't talking to each other either. And we a few feet apart, and he's, I don't know about you, but I can't move. I can't go any further. I can't either. We both could go backwards, but we can't go forward anymore. We no sooner got back in the shelter when this thing started jabbering again. And so they got something going on there that I think maybe infrasound. Dr. Fish said it was either infrasound or pheromones, and the pheromones only work within the same species, but I still think it's infrasound because even though there's a human component to these things, in my opinion, there has to be if only humans have the vocal mechanism. These things have the vocal mechanism for
Right.
language. And it is a language by the human definition of language, according to cryptolinguist. So we go from there. This traveling, I went into Moscow with a couple of scientists, and we spoke to the Darwin Museum there. They're all into it back there. They really are. And ended up flying over to Siberia with a group of reporters, and they said they were experiencing the Yeti over there, the wild man, they call it there. And they took us way back in the middle of nowhere and took us to a cave, and we ended up going in the cave, which you could drive a truck in, a huge cave, and we found a track, 5-foot print back there. Actually found more than one. And anyway, we couldn't give them 100%. Yeah, that's a Yeti track. Meldrum is a track expert, So because of that, anytime someone takes you to a spot for evidence, you don't know manipulated or not unless you do a full-blown study on it.
Right.
We weren't prepared to do that. He
Mhm.
wasn't. So, they were very cordial to us, though. I mean, it was a big, big event. We got back into Moscow sometime a few days later, and they had it on the news there. The only
Oh,
English
neat.
station.
Yeah, here they would censor all that stuff,
Well, they would
or
have then,
make,
yeah.
make a joke out of it or whatever.
Well, that's the problem, because if the government don't know it and can't control it, they don't want you to know it either.
Mhm.
And so they just
Well, when they mock you, it's basically a social censorship.
yeah, it is. And they'll make fun of you, or they'll somehow destroy you.
Right.
And that's happened. Destroy your reputation or something. And they've been known for that for ages. That's just what governments do. They control the narrative.
Right.
The
So
narrative is,
in Russia, you went with Dr. Meldrum and Dr. Bendernagel.
yes, yeah.
So how did you guys get that uh, triad together?
Oh well, they asked us. Russian people did. Well, we know Igor Ivanov, I think today. Igor became a good friend, but he got the government to support us and take us over there. So they put us up in a hotel in Moscow, and took us over into Siberia, and a long way off, by the way. Siberia was all part of Russia, but I guess it was still about 2,000-mile trip.
Wow.
And we stayed over there at this village, escorted by the not Mexico, so I can't call them federales, by the Russian government,
KGB
They,
or whatever.
yeah, they had guards and everything else around us.
Yeah.
So, but we stayed there a couple of days. They took us way up into the mountains. This big, what they call them, tires are taller than me. It goes through rivers and everything else. And, they took us way back in the middle of nowhere and cross the rivers with it. And ended up having a little village back there and fed us. But the shore people is who lived in the village, SHOR. They're descendants of Mongolia. And they're the ones that said the Yeti back there. All right. Wow, man, they call it. That was an experience too. It was fun.
Wow, that's incredible. So
And,
so when you tour the different conventions and stuff, uh there's the similar guys that you see, all the speakers that you see all the time, like Dr. Meldrum and
Yeah, I've been with Dr.
body.
Mendel quite a few times, and
Mhm.
John Benedict passed away, but I've been with him too a few times. But a lot of people are now getting into the I don't want to call it paranormal, but it's not pseudoscience, but it's quantum science. And Meldon won't go there because he's a classical science,
Uh,
and so him and I still see each other and speak at We just spoke at one in Florida earlier,
uh,
3 months ago,
oh, that's
and
interesting.
yeah, but he don't get into what I get into. He has to
Right.
stay within parameters, or they just do. They stay within where they were trained to be.
Right.
And they can't
So
go
you're
out of
actually
that.
more free in your research than they are.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not restricted by what they are. So but it's all just the way they're educated, the way they're conditioned, and we're all conditioned by certain ways. And
True.
that's what you have to be, is open-minded, and they're not allowed to be that way. Where science shouldn't be that way, I don't think. It shouldn't be so confined in classical science. That's what brought about quantum science, because it gets out of that box. It's how things work. When the Dr. Christopher Blair at West Texas A&M, he said everything from atom through the cosmos works on the rules of quantum science. You get into that study and get into what Tesla said, what one man calls God, another one calls quantum science. Well, to me, quantum science and spirituality are synonymous.
Hmm.
And so, because it's there, people are
Right.
seeing things that they can't explain. And how do you explain it? Well, there's laws that explain anything, and that's where I go with it all. How do they disappear? Can they disappear? Is there any kind of rule behind that? Yes, there is. I found it.
Right.
Dr. Paul Dirac, at 1933, excuse me, won the Nobel Prize for antimatter, and that's the direct exchange between matter and energy, and that's proven. I mean, by CERN in 2012, when the hydrogen collider uh, particle change into energy. You won't see energy, but you can detect it.
Hmm.
And I think that's where some people see ghosts. That's where some people see the energy of things that they don't see with their eyes.
Uh, yeah. So
Yeah, but
go ahead.
no, I'm just going to say that was the most interesting thing I think I came up with in a while. How, because tracks disappear. You hear about, I hear people talk, well, their tracks just stopped. Well, you know, classical people would just say, well, it had to get picked up by a helicopter then. But you go all the way back into Fred Beck, or in Oregon, when he supposedly shot one. Prior to that, though, they followed a trackway, and he said it would had to have jumped 160 feet to have not left another track.
Wow.
And so he always thought there was some paranormal about him. And I ran across that same situation when my daughter had a sighting, and we were up at Coast Guard camp, and we found the trackway, and the trackway just stopped. And
Huh.
well, what do you do with that? And I started looking around because I know she's not lying to me. She saw one, and we found the tracks, and they're very deep, very heavy. We couldn't even make a track where they were, and they just stopped. I look around trees. Could they jump up at a tree? Could they jump to a boulder? They get over the brush somehow? What happened? And then I realized it's the direct exchange between matter and energy. Somehow they can change their frequency to get into uh, to the matter into energy
Hmm.
state and back again.
I
So
wonder if there's some kind of manipulation of gravity, because I mean, gravity, like gravity to a 500-pound person and a 100-pound person, there's a big
mm,
difference between the gravity between them and a dense material and a lightweight material. And I wonder if there's some kind of maybe hypnosis or some kind of things where they deal with gravity on a different level than, because we have a paradigm. Gravity is this and we accept it. But in martial arts, you see people that can really, and even in dancing, that they appear to be defying gravity because they will themselves to do it. And when you don't think something's possible, it's not. So I don't know if that's part of
that's a
your
good question. It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know either. However, gravity is the root of a lot of things.
right.
In space, there's no gravity, time is different, and
True.
time is only existing in a linear state for us in a three-dimensional environment.
Mhm,
You get outside of that and it doesn't exist like we perceive it.
mhm,
So that's what makes life here so interesting, because we get to experience things day in and day out, different things. And I try to tell people that it's not the experience, but it's how you respond to the experience that counts. And it's all based on compassion and love. And if you don't have compassion and love, and then instead of getting mad and throwing a rock or something, well, you're elevating yourself at a higher frequency.
mhm.
And that's what's important to get us to where we're supposed to be. We're made in the image of something very, very special. Humans are very, very special. I mean, very special. And I think a lot of entities, besides, I mean, a lot of entities from the cosmos or whatever, say it. We got laughed out of this 10 years ago if we started talking about it, but I'm talking about it freely now since our government says we can. But I
Mhm.
think they've messed with a lot of the genome of different species on this planet for eons, prior to Homo sapiens, probably even. And but you dig way back into history with to way back into the cuneiform text and Sumerians tablets. You get all the way back into there and start looking at that stuff. You realize just how different things were, how it's all been brought forward into what we read nowadays and get conditioned by. So I think you have to have an open mind on what it really stands for and what it really means.
No, that's awesome. So we got like 2 minutes left, and then
Uh,
it shuts down. So
okay.
whatever you want to convey in that 2 minutes.
Well, I have two books. My Voices in the Wilderness, a book, it's my chronicle, comes with a download of the sounds. When I get the context, you can hear the sounds. Then I got the Quantum Bigfoot book. I've got two CDs. That one's narrated by Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek Next Generation. I narrate the other one. Both of those have sounds, but they're narrated. So it narrates something you can listen to in your car or wherever. My website, these can be had on my website as a download or in hard copies of the books at ronmorehead.com. And that's morehead.com.
And people can watch the internet to see where you're going to be speaking next. And
Well,
uh,
they should be able to. I'm kind of
I'm
lazy
looking
about
forward
that.
to doing that.
I just show up. A lot of
I've
times
only
I
I've
don't.
only done two conference. I haven't done any, but I mean I've attended uh three now, and it was all within the last 2 months. It's just I've been into the subject for a long time, but I never got into the community until now.
Uh, there's a lot of strange things out there. I know the one I just left in Texas, they're really seeing a lot of what they call dog man, which I never had much consideration for. But well, they're seeing a Bigfoot with ears or something, But no, they're seeing. I've seen some pretty credible people talking about it, and something's going on. And I think we're all living in a very special time. Very special time.
Okay, well we'll wrap this one up, and thanks very much for being on the cast, or whatever they call these YouTubes. And then
Thank
I'd like to get together with you once the article's done and stuff, and you know uh, do another couple sections if that's okay
Sure.
with you.
Yeah, I can talk about this stuff all day. I've been
Well,
doing it for over 50 years now, so uh,
that's